This podcast and content posted by Dr. Judith Joseph is presented solely for general informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from this podcast or website is at the user's own risk. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional diagnoses or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical or mental health condition they may have and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.
Hello, I'm so grateful that you chose to listen to this podcast. I'm Dr. Judith, a board-certified psychiatrist and researcher. And on this podcast, you will hear from world-renowned experts. At the end of every single podcast of The Vault, every expert talks about a time in their lives when they were struggling and no one knew it. And they talk about what they used to get through that struggle. So make sure you listen through till the end and you subscribe and share with a friend.
Balanda Atis is a pioneering cosmetic scientist. When Atis realized that there were limited options for women of color in terms of foundation tones, she started a project with L'Oreal to study skin tones across the world. Her work led to the discovery that ultramarine was the tone needed to create rich and deeper shades of brown without leaving a muddy finish. Her pioneering work led to the foundation that actress Lupita Nyong'o wore in ads for Lancome. Elle magazine named Atis as one of the top 10 Black women making history, and Atis's work expanded shades of makeup for other brands such as Armani, Lancome, Maybelline, and Urban Decay. You actually created foundation that was used for Oscar-winning actresses who are of darker complexions. I'm sure that, you probably didn't see that coming when you started your project, right? So what are some of the other things, great things that have sprouted from your vision?
I think one of the things I'm most excited about is being an expert in the field of science, in this aspect of science, but also being able to share that science with other people. Right now, my role is quite different, but it's still science-based. What gets me excited now is that I get to communicate on skin and the importance of the products that we need for skin, again, around the world, but really also for my skin. I get approached quite frequently. What are the products that you're using? Your skin is amazing. And okay, thank you, but it's from the science. It's from the research that's done. It's from understanding the needs that I have and people like myself, and then creating what actually works.
Atis joins us on The Vault to inspire other women of color to take charge and create passion projects that uplift and inspire their communities. During this Black History Month, we are honoring Atis for her pioneering work with L'Oreal because she has made us all feel more beautiful from the inside out. Atis also talks about some of her challenges as a Caribbean American woman in the workplace and offers tips for others who are listening. I am so excited to have you in The Vault. I have been fangirling about you and your work in the space of beauty and really cultural acceptance and inclusivity and diversity in the beauty space. So thank you so much for being in The Vault today.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being interested in the work that goes behind creating shades for everyone.
Well, tell me about how did this idea start in your mind? I know you're in the beauty field, you're a chemist, you're around products all day. And, you did what many of us have always wanted, to happen, but you made it happen. How did that even start? Please begin.
It's interesting because I think it started for me at a very young age, because my mother was a cosmetologist. So, many, many years ago, they called it a beautician. So she went to beauty school, and when she graduated and she was in school, she was always trying to buy products, cosmetic products that would work for her. And they did it. They did not work for her. And, I could never tell you, okay, Mom, you look ridiculous with that shade on, but, you kind of let it go. But it was always something in the back of my mind, why can't she find something? She's an expert in this field, but yet she still can't find anything that works for her. So went on to study science. Science was, I think, always my passion and my love. But then when I found out that there was this field that actually was called cosmetic science, that's when I said, okay, I think I found kind of what I like to do and what I want to do. So I think on day one, it was just okay, I need to find a foundation shade. And when I quickly found that there weren't any available for me, that kind of stirred the excitement and the pot inside of me to say, okay, look, we have to find a solution.
Well, many of us have like a desire to make a contribution, to change things so that our communities feel more seen, but we don't act on it. And so I'm curious, because a lot of people, they want to be like you. They want to be a trailblazer. And it is not always easy, right? Like at all. So I just take us through that process of like, okay, this is a problem. I need to fix it, but how do I fix it? Take us through the process. It's interesting
because, I have to say, being part of the L'Oreal group, where I am at now, you have the capability to really explore and to do different things. So it was really a challenge that was given to me by senior management. There was a launch called L'Oreal HIP, and it stood for High Intensity Pigment. It was the first time that the brand had decided to try to expand its shade range. But when it did that, it still had the same challenges. It was either too light, too dark, too ashy, too gray. I like to say it was like war paint. And the head of the division came to me, a wonderful French man. He said, "Oh, Balanda, you should be so excited. Now you have all of these foundation shades to pick from." And I said, "No." I said, "I'm sorry, but I still can't find my shade. Like, it's still not good." And I always joke and I say, out of frustration, I think he said, "Okay, you can't find a solution? Find it. If you don't have a solution, find it, fix it." So myself and two other chemists at the time, we sat down and said, how can we have a scientific approach to show what are the colorants that are needed to create the best foundation shades? Selfishly for us, but eventually it became for the world.
Wow. It's a very Socratic method, right? There's no solution to the problem. So, hey, you go fix it. You found the problem. Guess what? You're the one who's tasked to create the solution. And it's important for us to be able to find products that make us feel more confident, because especially when you're a young girl and, you're going through body image issues, you're trying to figure out who you are, not having a product to support you where you feel seen can be a source of frustration, and you feel as if maybe you're not as valued. And so, like, even when you look at the amount of like diversity in the dolls that we play with, I look at my daughter's collection, I'm like, we never had the dolls with the baby hair and the braids and, like the cutting edge style that represented, all the diversity within our own cultures, right? So, how have you felt in terms of like the reward and the sense of purpose in doing something that is difficult? Because doing something new that other people aren't focusing on and taking that risk, it does create purpose, but it also creates a lot of fear and apprehension for a lot of people.
It does, because you have the fear of getting it wrong. So you have to make sure like the science is, we say the science is sciencing. We have to make sure that every study is accurate. Every study is done in a manner that it can go back and be criticized. Science is something that's definitive. So you have to make sure that your results are so that if someone comes back and analyzes it in 10 years, they can say, okay, I can understand how they came to this conclusion. But to your point, it was really that idea of we're all beautiful. We all have this inner beauty. Sometimes we like to express it on the outside. For me, cosmetics is nothing but just that. It's the tool to express your inner beauty when you want to and how you want to. But in order to do that, you just have to have the tools. So it was all about trying to create those tools to allow for people to express that inner beauty. And we say inner beauty, but sometimes you don't wake up always feeling beautiful. There are days that you need that extra boost or that extra shot of something to get you to, motivate you to move. There's always this thought, they call it like the lipstick recession, where, even in the most difficult times, a woman will always go and purchase that cosmetic product. Why? Because that's what makes them feel good. That's what excites them. So that's what we aimed to do when we started the research.
Well, for me, it's not lipstick, it's eyebrows, because I have 0 eyebrows. But I'll tell you, I won't leave the house without drawing them on, you know? But for people who are listening, who let's say they're in an industry, it may not be beauty, it may not be music or even science or healthcare, where they feel as if, you know, their culture is not represented and they want to do something about it. What are, let's say, 3 nuggets that they can utilize or things that they can do to take the first steps to creating change that is, you know, culturally responsible?
Yeah. Well, you know, I think when you have to clearly identify what that change is that you want to make or what that issue, that challenge is. Sometimes we look at a challenge and it's so big, but I think if you dial down and you just focus on maybe one aspect of it, then you can see how you can tackle it. Then the next is have confidence in yourself. It's like, how can you build that confidence to say, okay, this is the issue. I think I can find a solution, or I know there's a solution. Let me embrace on how to find that solution. So have the confidence in yourself. It's not going to be definitive that you're always going to have that support. So which brings me to the third is to rally it in. When you know you have that challenge, see who you can bring onto your team to help build your support, build your confidence, and then helps you to get to the results that you want faster. When we were doing the studies, we started off in the US, collecting different skin tones, going to the state fair, because we really didn't have any funding at the time to really do much of anything. So we were piggybacking on different things that were happening. So we joined the state fair. But then quickly, we started to get the support of other teams, other executives from other brands. And so, okay, you know, well, why don't you do the study in South Africa? We went to South Africa, did the study there. Nigeria can be interesting. We went to Nigeria, then India, then China. So it was like the popcorn. It just, you get someone interested and that person helps to build the support system that you need to kind of move forward.
I love that you brought that up, because I saw recently on a social media reel a woman who, I believe she's from South Korea, and she's very tanned, you know, and she says, you know, my complexion in South Korea, there are a lot of people that look like me, but you won't see it. You won't see it on the commercials. What you see is like very, very, very light, pale, kind of like I think she said like almost like vampire pale. And she was saying that for her, she has to like really search for her skin foundation, her complexion there. But she says in the US, I could find it anywhere. Like, and she was putting on her makeup as she was talking about it. And I just thought, wow, like, you know, we think that it's just, sometimes we feel like it's just us, right? Within the African American or the African diaspora. But it happens across the board. Like, people need to feel seen. They need to feel supported. It's very true. And I love what you said, the 3 tips, you know, like having an aim, having a goal. Many of us, like when you ask, what do you want? We don't know, right? But first you got to figure out what you want, right? Confidence. And, you know, like confidence is something that I think people struggle with because they may either have imposter syndrome. If you are someone who's underrepresented and you're the only one that looks like you on a team, you may be a little shy, but you know, there's something about being the only one that looks like you that actually does have a power in it, because you're so unique. You tend to get a lot of attention, right? Like if you notice, be in a room where you're the only person that looks like you, someone's going to talk to you because you're so different, right? And the third, you know, leaning on others and having a sense of community, that is so important. You need allies. You can't do it alone. You really need allies. So yeah, there are people who will be against you, but try and find the people that are there for you. I think that's excellent advice. And wow, your work has taken you across the world. You know, you think you're solving one problem at home, but like you help so many women across the world. What are some of the creative things that you're working, where you're looking now? Because I'm sure this project turned into great things. I read that you actually created foundation that was used for Oscar-winning actresses who are of darker complexions. I'm sure that, you know, you probably didn't see that coming when you started your project, right? So what are some of the other things, great things that have sprouted from your vision?
You know, I think one of the things I'm most excited about is being an expert in the field of science, in this aspect of science, but also being able to share that science with other people. Right now, my role is quite different, but it's still science-based. What gets me excited now is that I get to communicate on skin and the importance of the products that we need for skin, again, around the world, but really also for my skin. I get approached quite frequently. And, if I've given a talk, well, what are the products that you're using? Your skin is amazing. And okay, thank you, but it's from the science, it's from the research that's done. It's from understanding the needs that I have and women like myself or people like myself, and then creating what actually works. So the newness for me now is taking that science that grounded me and understanding how to create the best color products, but now going maybe a step backwards. It's not just what's, up front, but it's like what goes behind, which is the skincare. So that's exciting for me.
That is exciting. I have this series on skin and mental health where I talk to dermatologists and therapists who focus on skin, hair, and mental health. And I know when I was initially in training years ago, we never talked about this. It was like, oh, that's vanity. That's for the dermatologists to think about. But now we're seeing that how people are openly talking about how skin issues, whether it be from acne or aging, right, or dryness or rashes or discolorations or hair falling out, there's so much information. People are really sharing their stories. So you can't say like, oh, it's just vanity or it's just fashion or it's just style. You really have to validate this because it's impacting people's well-being and their quality of life. So what are ways that you've seen skin issues play out in terms of how people perceive themselves, how they interact in the world, and, their mental health and well-being?
I think one of the biggest things that I think transcends all ethnicities or all groups is aging, and understanding how do we embrace aging. So being, again, the scientist that has to communicate on the different products, I find sometimes that people are stressed. They're stressed. They have anxiety because, oh my gosh, I have a wrinkle. What do I do? I can't go out today. I'm just not feeling myself because how do I correct this dark spot or this pimple? So it's how can we try to find, again, the best products to get you to being your best self and as fast as possible. And then understanding and teaching how to better take care of your skin. For example, SPF. SPF has been, at least in our community, has been almost like, okay, it's taboo. No one needs to wear SPF. SPF is not important. But did we know that SPF is really the number one sign or way that you age your skin? If you have SPF protection, it actually slows down the aging process. So less wrinkle, less sagging skin, less age spots, sunspots. All of that could be corrected if we teach ourselves and teach others to use sunscreen. And then you couple it with like the different actives, vitamin C, hyaluronic acid, retinol, pro-retinol. We have a wonderful product, Triple Power. And that is like, I call it, it's the trifecta. It has all of those good ingredients in there. And now it has an SPF. So it's teaching consumers, like, how can you take care of yourself? It goes back to what I was saying before. Before it's like, take care of showing your inner beauty, but reflecting it on the outside with cosmetics. It's the same thing with skin. If you feel good about yourself and your skin looks great, then it's a win-win.
It's so true. I remember years ago when I was in training, there was a patient who was a heavy smoker in their youth, and the smoking had aged their skin, and it was hurting their confidence because, they were constantly being asked if they were like older than they were, and there's nothing against being older or aging, but for this individual, it impacted their sense of self-worth. And, we were talking in therapy, and I just thought, you know what? I could give you all the therapy in the world, but it doesn't fix your skin, right? It doesn't fix the problem. And so I had to work with a dermatologist to get them on the right regimen, and like the retinols and all those things helped. And when they started noticing improvements in their skin, they started being more confident. They started looking people in the eye. They were being more assertive. And, the energy they were putting out there in the world, it was coming right back at them, right? So before, when they had the low confidence, they're putting that energy out that they weren't worthy, that they weren't good enough, that they had so low self-esteem. So people were treating them like that. Not that it's their fault, but that's people pick up on energy. And when they were more confident, people would treat them with more respect as well. So it really does matter. And the studies are showing that people who feel more confident about the way they look, their skin, their hair, they make better decisions. They're more confident in terms of like dating. It impacts your relationship. So it's not something small. We're whole human beings. We have the mind-body connection. It really does matter. And when I have my experts, I always ask them about a time in their lives when, no pun intended, on the outside, everything looked great. You do have great skin. Your hair is laid. But, what was a time in your life when on the outside, things looked great? People were saying, wow, she's really doing it. She's got it all figured out. She must have no problems. But you knew on the inside you were struggling. And how did you get through that?
Oh, wow. You know what? It's difficult to pick one because there's been so many instances. And I guess maybe it's my age, I don't know, but there's been so many different examples that I can give. But I'll give one because she's about to come downstairs any minute. And my daughter, my first daughter, who is adopted. I adopted her from Haiti. She came 13 days post-earthquake. And the time frame and I had started the adoption process before, but the stress of when that earthquake happened on a Tuesday. It was on a Tuesday because she was scheduled to come to the U.S. on that Thursday. Earthquake happens, total disruption. I had just had knee surgery. I was at the gym, hurt myself, had knee surgery, so I'm in crutches. And this Tuesday afternoon, get word that there's this earthquake, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get a 2-year-old child to the U.S. That stress took me out for 13 days.
Wow.
Literally took me out. I still had to show up. I still had to, get things done. And, and I didn't share with too many people because, a lot of people had issues with, other people were having family members that were trapped and things were going on. So it was just like, okay, let me contain it. I'm not going to tell all of my family members what's happening. I just have to keep it together. When I have a date of when she's coming, then I can tell people. So for 13 days, the stress of not knowing, the stress of trying to get a call in, but the lines are down. The biggest stress in that one of the biggest stresses in that entire situation was I was on repeat, dialing the number to her caretaker on repeat, and no signal. Finally, the phone rings. My gosh, it's ringing. This was after maybe day 6 or so. It's ringing. Oh my God. Someone answers. They answer the line and you hear people moaning. And it was probably one of the most difficult sounds I think I've ever heard. They were people that were trapped in the rubble.
Wow.
And I dropped the phone and my uncle was standing next to me. I dropped the phone. He picked up the phone. He's like, hello. He looked at the phone. I dialed the wrong number.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, I'm not going to try anymore. I'm not going to try anymore. But just that entire situation was probably one of the most stressful situations where I still had to put on like, I got it. But in fact, the inside was just like shattered.
And how did you get through that? Thank you for sharing that.
It was 13 days later, I got a call from the State Department. It was a Sunday evening. And it says, good news. We have custody of your daughter. She's at the embassy. We were, in the background trying to figure out how I can get her to the embassy from where she was at. And she'll be coming in on a military plane. Okay, what does that mean? Stay tuned. We'll give you a call. I had no idea what that meant. Then I got notification from an orphanage, because she wasn't in an orphanage, but I got notification from an orphanage that says, hey, this phone number was attached to the child, and we're just calling to let you know that we're getting on a plane. We're going to be in Miami, Florida. So I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll let you know when we get there. She just had a piece of paper with phone
goodness.
number. And now I'm calling my friends who work for airlines. I need a buddy pass. Give me a flight. So I got a flight. I got a call at about maybe 2-3 a.m. It's like, we're no longer in Miami. We're in Sanford, Florida, on a military base. So net found a way to get down there, get to the military base, and they literally had all of the kids in a warehouse. Think of like a hangar, a plane hangar. There were just kids in there screaming, running around. Some had no shoes on their feet. Some of them just had like a pair of pants on. Kid just had the shirt on. So it was crazy. It was intense, but everything worked out well. They bring her over to me. I was in a wheelchair by now. I had like 2 military guys pushing me in a wheelchair because I was still like, I had my crutches, and so they were helping me get around, and they brought her to me, and she's looking up and she's trying to figure out like what's going on. She gets outside. The first thing she says, "What took you so long?" I said, "She'll be fine. My stress level."
Wow.
And she hasn't stopped talking since. She's 19.
That is an incredible story. Incredible. I mean, I cannot imagine. I'm a mother as well. And if the idea of a 2-year-old, wow, what a powerful story. And how lucky is she to have a mother like you?
Thank you.
And also, thank you, because as a Caribbean American woman, you are just on fire. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you for all that you do for our community. You help us to feel beautiful inside out. Where can we follow you, find you, and read up on your work?
So, okay, this is where I have to do better. So I'm on Instagram. I guess you can Google. Google has some good stories. I've been quite fortunate to be able to share my stories through a lot of different publications. So if you Google, you'll find some of the stories that kind of explain the science, what it took to get to where we were at. Getting to a range of 40 shades was not easy. We're actually past 40 now. And to be honest, with some of the technologies that we have for our other brands, we're over 500 shades that we've developed. So a lot of that work is kind of explained through publications. So Google, I think, is the best way if you want to learn. If you want to connect, I'm on Instagram, my first name and my last name.
Well, we'll definitely tag you in this on LinkedIn, and you are Black history that we are so proud of. Thank you for being in the vault, and I can't wait for everyone to listen to this episode.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for having this amazing platform. I've had a chance to go back and look at some of your work. It is amazing. So thank you for creating this platform for us to be a part of.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.